All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us. Another Rob Brown Show podcast edition coming your way. And I think this one is going to be especially special for the folks here in the upstate of South Carolina, because I have joining us here on the pod one of the most beloved players in the history of the very successful history of the Greenville Triumph, a young man who was twice named the USL League One Goaltender of the Year. He is also a USL League One champion. The great Dallas Jaye joins us here on the Rob Brown Show. DJ, what's happening, brother? How you been, man?
How you doing, man? I've been good. I haven't heard some of those accolades and some of those things said in a while, so it was a little bit of a walk down memory lane just now, which is awesome. But no, I'm doing great. I'm joining you today from the Bay Area out in California, and just transitioning into new life, new career, and enjoying the road so far.
Yeah, how is the coach? I mean, I want to get into what you got into as a player post leaving the Greenville Triumph, obviously, but have stepped up now in a coaching role with St. Mary's. Talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah. So the opportunity came up, kind of mid-season while I was playing for Monterey Bay in the USL Championship, and um, for me, everything about it just kind of felt right. It got me back home. I grew up here in the Bay Area, in the East Bay. I probably grew up about 15 minutes from St. Mary's, so it was a way for me to really truly come back home after 5 years of college and 7 years as a pro, playing everywhere but California. But it's been awesome. It's been awesome being on the other side of things. I've fortunate to have had such great coaching role models in my career. Two key ones being the John Harkes and Alex Blackburn at Greenville Triumph. Not to disregard Rick Wright and Ryan Mackey and the rest of the staff, but obviously John Harkes is the head coach and Alex Blackburn is the keeper coach. I've taken on a goalkeeper coaching role at St. Mary's, as well as director of goalkeeping for a youth club here. So I'm working with kids from 9 years old all the way up to college kids that are aspiring to be pros. So been an awesome opportunity. One I had to kind of take advantage of when it came, which obviously required me to retire mid-season. But don't regret it, a single bit of it. And it's been going well. I'm hoping for a better season next year for our St. Mary's boys. We did decent this year, but definitely a lot to build on and something I'm excited to work towards.
Talk to me a little bit about that, kind of how your playing career, which you had a handful of stops, and if I may be selfish, none better and more important than the one here in the upstate of South Carolina. But when you take the success you had as a player in the goalkeeper role, how has that kind of helped you to evolve as a coach at a program that's got some notoriety at the college level, and somebody that parents trust to grow their kids into being the best keeper they can be? How did your experience as a professional level player, as an international level player, kind of prepare you for this coaching role?
Yeah, it's become everything I've leaned on in the early days of being a coach, of being a young coach, right? In my first year. Basically every decision, every training session, everything, everything I put into this season was, okay, what did I like as a player? What didn't I like? What did I want to see from the coaches I had? What did I know I needed from the coaches I had? Even maybe something I didn't want, but I knew I needed it, whether it was, there's times where you need that arm around the shoulder, and there's times where you need that kick in the butt from a coach. And navigating that for me has been interesting, because had never, I'd done private goalkeeper training sessions and stuff like that while I was playing, but never had truly been in kind of a coaching role. And had some conversations in depth with folks like John Harkes and some other guys that would pick their brain on how to go about this or how to do that. So a learning curve, right? It's been made some mistakes along the way, for sure. I'll make some more as a coach, but for me, everything I kind of brought to the table was putting myself in the player's shoes, because I was just in them, a few months ago. So I like to think that gave me some credibility with the guys I was coaching, and for the parents of the youth kids that I train. It's awesome. This club hasn't had a someone in that role who had professional playing experience, even college playing experience. So I like to think I bring something to the table that they haven't seen yet. And feedback's been great so far. I think they've been appreciative. And when you get to work with younger kids, it reminds me why, where I started, why I started loving the position, loving the game. So it's really cool to get back.
Dallas Jaye, former goalkeeper for the Greenville Triumph, longtime professional, now coach at St. Mary's University, joining us here on the Rob Brown Show podcast edition. And talk to me a little bit about that, because obviously you've been in the game for so long as a player. Now you're coaching at the collegiate level. You're running camps for younger players to grow up. We talked with John Harkes a couple of weeks ago, actually a few days ago, about the growth of soccer in this country, where it's I mean, I don't think I'm twisting any arms to say it's been kind of a second level sport that is really trying to break down barriers. As somebody who has kind of played during this little bit of a soccer renaissance that we've been having, and with, especially at the international level, seeing the next generation of players, the Gio Reynas, the Christian Pulisic's kind of upped it. What has it been like being a player in the midst of what I kind of think is a bit of a soccer explosion around the country, to be kind of in the middle of that and now to be coaching that next generation? What's that been like for you?
I think you nail it on the head when the phrase you use, because I use it all the time in soccer renaissance. I think we're very much kind of in one, and being a player. I started in the USL when I was in 2016 with FC Cincinnati, that has now obviously become an MLS club. Have grown through the USL. Before there was USL League One. So you kind of see all the growth that has happened at the professional level. And as a player, you're amongst it, right? We have collective bargaining agreements now. We have all these things that have kind of grown the game at the professional level. And we all joke as players now. I say players now, I'm no longer a player, obviously, but amongst those guys that, we're going to look back 10, 15 years from now and look at the USL and be proud that we got to be a part of it, but also probably a little ticked off that they're getting these wages now, or they're getting this accommodation now, because it's growing so quickly and it's getting so much better. And really, for guys in the USL, has become a sustainable living, a comfortable living. And in the back in the older days, a lot of times it was just a labor of love. Guys were keeping second jobs and just doing what they could to get by, but you were living out your dream, right? But to see that, and I look at the youth players now and I think of, okay, myself when I was 11, 12, 13 years old as a player, these kids are so much better. They really are. Like, across the board, there's just, so you see that progression that's been made. I was talking to another former player. He's assistant coach at University of San Francisco now, Baggio Sidic, a great player, played for LA Galaxy for a number of years, had a great MLS career. And he was saying the same thing. We were scouting for our respective colleges, and he was like, these kids are just leaps and bounds better than what kids were 15, 20 years ago. So it's a testament to the folks at U.S. Soccer, the professional routes, the college routes here in the U.S. And it's exciting. You see it right now with our national team. You have these 19, 20, 21, 22, 23-year-old guys leading our team in a World Cup. Obviously, a couple older guys as well, but it's a testament to what's been going on here in this country the last 10, 15 years.
It's been interesting, especially like even at the USL League One level, which is, outside of the occasional Sports Center top 10 highlight when somebody does something amazing, it's not necessarily a league that's getting, big time ESPN airtime or Fox Sports airtime. But we have watched even in just the last couple of years, the progression of attendance, right? Like, we looked at the USL League One championship, and there were multiple games bringing in 10,000 plus spectators. And that growth seems to be happening at every level. But it takes not just great fans, but it takes special levels of players at every level, from the collegiate level up, for fans to justify, especially with so many other opportunities for entertainment elsewhere. I mean, I've got 15 different streaming services just for sports hooked up on the TV right now. I can never leave the couch and watch everything, but it takes special players doing something special at every level to get them into the game at every level. Now that you're kind of coaching at the collegiate level, but you've played at pretty much every level of soccer, especially you mentioned Cincinnati getting moved up. That doesn't happen without guys like Dallas Jaye to kind of build that foundation. What has it been like for you as a player to see support for this game in America at every level, from high school up through college, up to lower level professional, up to MLS, to see that evolution in terms of fan support, which grows the game, which, of course, the growth of the game grows the fan support, to watch that on kind of all three sides, as a fan, as a player, and now as a coach? Is there that level of excitement for you that American soccer is beginning to kind of catch up to some of the other sports like baseball and basketball?
Absolutely, absolutely, there is, and I think it starts with the youth, the youth soccer participation in this country. Um, I may be wrong here, but I think it's the most participated in sport across both male and female across the board in our country now. So you're getting a lot more kids playing soccer at a younger age, coming up through the ranks. A lot more opportunity for them to. There's different pathways now. You can go straight into the professional game. Kids go over to Europe. Kids go the college route. There's a number of different directions they can go in. And I guess the best way I can relate it to is I can just look at this national team that's at the World Cup right now. So I played against Tyler Adams in 2016 when he was with New York Red Bull 2 playing in the USL. Played against Matt Turner when he was getting loaned out from, I believe it was DC United. DC United. He was getting loaned out to Richmond Kickers. It might have been with New England Revolution getting loaned out, but getting loaned out to Richmond Kickers playing in the USL. Aaron Long and I played PDL together. It's now USL League Two, but PDL back in the day for 2 summers together. He was a USL guy, got USL Defender of the Year, worked his way up to MLS, got MLS Defender of the Year. Now these are guys that have had to take the steps, in the progression of a career to get to where they are now. And it's awesome to see it, and you see it more now than ever, right? There's guys like myself in League One who got the opportunity to move up to the championship, guys in the championship moving up to MLS far more than it was happening even 3, 4, 5 years ago. So you see this progression, you see everything kind of coming together, and for me with this World Cup, we'll see how they do, but I even look towards the 2026 World Cup, and here in the US, right, we'll have home field advantage in a lot of ways. You have another 4 years for players to develop, and it's just an exciting time to be a coach in U.S. soccer, to be a fan of teams in U.S. soccer. I walked away from all the clubs that I played at, and I was like, I will be a fan of those clubs for the rest of my life. My goal next year is to try to get to, in 2023, get out to each city that I got to play in and at least go see a game. So Cincinnati, Phoenix, Greenville, and Monterey's easy. Monterey's just down the road. But to be a fan of it now, to be a coach of it now, and to see it continue progressing is just an exciting thing.
I was talking with Harksey last week, of course, a 2-time World Cup participant, played for the U.S. men's national team, National Soccer Hall of Fame, etc. And we had a kick about back and forth for quite a minute about like what's the ultimate way to grow this game. And there were really 2 ways that I said. Number one, just like with every other American sport, win, right? Like there's 2 groups of sports in America: the sports we're good at, and then all the ones we don't care about, right? Like that's kind of been the mentality for a number of years. And the women's side, by winning World Cups, winning Olympic gold medals, etc., proved you could go out for a while there and you would see more Alex Morgan jerseys than you would Landon Donovan jerseys for a hot minute there. But the second thing to me has always been to create an atmosphere where soccer is involved in the community. And I'm talking personalities like you and John who do stuff like this and put their voices out there and make sure the game is a welcoming place that invite, not just saying, we hope you show up, but actively inviting, pulling people in. And doing stuff like this interview, doing stuff like I saw you do when you were in Greenville, by being out and being amongst the community, etc., has always been really important. And I kind of feel, Dallas, and you would probably be more suited to talk about this than me, but with the rise of guys like Reyna and Pulisic and Weah and these young kids that are taking this game to the next level, and seeing teams like the Greenville Triumph, and really it's happened across USL League One. If you, for instance, watch the interactions between like the Triumph and the Tormentus social media going back and forth and inviting fans to kind of get in on it, it just feels like this is a really important moment in soccer history, in that soccer is starting to put its personalities at the front as opposed to the sport, right? The NBA has done that. They've embraced having these players have personalities. The most influential guys in the NFL are the guys that are over the top and have these big personalities. Peyton Manning right now, because he's so damn funny, is on every television network all the time. And I kind of feel like that has been a development that really kicked off in the last 5 or 6 years. And even if it happens in a place like Greenville instead of Nashville or Detroit or Chicago, it's still important because you get local soccer fans in and then they start to spread outward. I think you were massively influential in doing that here in Greenville. A, is that kind of the way you see it? And B, if so, how important does that make it for pretty much everybody who laces up a pair of boots at the professional level, certainly, but at every level, to kind of be ambassadors for the sport?
Yeah, I think it's massively important, and I was fortunate to get to see this in real time on 3 different occasions. So when I signed my first professional contract, Coach Harks in FC Cincinnati in 2016, brand new club, expansion club. Greenville Triumph, 2019, brand new club, expansion club. And then this past year with Monterey Bay, same thing, brand new club, expansion club. So we're going into these new markets where no one knows what this team is, what it's going to be about. And the clubs themselves can sell the brand, but what's the substance behind the brand? And it becomes the players, it becomes the team. So that's what fans end up taking to. And Greenville being a perfect example, right? Easy to sell a John Harkes right off the bat. He's had about as incredible career as any player could have. Um, so they built things around that to start, but then the players come in, and then we get to know some of the fans. We start winning some games, and I mean the connections that got built between players and fans and the community was it was more. That is what a club is, right? It's not just front office players, coaching staff. It's the fans. It's an entire club. It's a community, and Greenville's a great example. You see how it's grown over the last 4 years. And I mean, we were talking about it off air just before we came on. I'm going to be coming back to Greenville in a couple weeks, and I made a point to book, instead of booking a 2 or 3 day trip for a wedding, I'm going to book a 6 day trip because I want to come back and see people that I've missed last year. Fans, different people that I got to connect with, and I think it's hugely important for clubs, and that's why you see. USL is a great example, right? In the MLS, you're in bigger markets. It can be a little easier to sell. It's the top division. USL, you have to work a little bit harder. You gotta grind. You got to be in the community a lot more. And you see the clubs that do it right, and the clubs that maybe miss the mark there a little bit. And I've been fortunate. All the ones that I have done really well. Monterey Bay FC this year was an awesome inaugural season, even after a really shaky start on the field. Really grew it well within the community. We did a lot of appearances. They branded it really well. Got to connect with a lot of folks, and that's what it's all about. You want to win games, you want to win trophies, you want to win championships, all that. But the experience, and I would tell people when I retired a few months ago, I'll remember some of the games, a few of the saves, some of these special moments, but you remember the people, you remember the experiences, you remember the jokes, the intangibles of it all, and that's really what is most important. That's why we all love this game. And but yeah, we do want to win. We want to see the U.S. win in the World Cup, absolutely. But no, those are the things that grow up club that are invaluable, and I've been very fortunate to be a part of a few clubs that have done it the right way.
One of the things that I've loved is I've followed soccer throughout my broadcasting career, different levels, different cities, etc. One of the things that I've loved about soccer is I don't think that there is a sport that is more community centric than soccer. Like I grew up a basketball fan, obviously college football's king, but those things become so tribal, centered around teams, right? Like you put a Clemson and a South Carolina fan, there's a good chance they're going to smack a couple of beers together and have a good time. But it's just like there's never, there doesn't seem to be as much of that bonding experience as there does in soccer. And I've always said part of that is because at its core, whether you're Greenville Tormento, whether you're Nashville SC or New England Revolution, we're all kind of on the same page of we want to get this sport into the big four, right? Like we want it to be football, baseball, basketball, and soccer that we talk about as Americans. And I think that growth of that community can be seen at pretty much every level, Dallas. And again, as somebody that was on the inside of that, I've talked to Triumph players, current, past, future, or current, past, and present, and they all kind of say the same thing, which is at the end of the day, like the job is to make the Greenville Triumph successful and bring hardware and shields and trophies back here. But the goal for the entire soccer community is to continue to grow the love of the game, the passion for the game into a larger audience. And as a player, did you see it that way? Like, was it a goal of yours, not just to go out there and, rack up clean sheets and trophies, but to make sure that you had people continuing to invest in the game so that future players would get those opportunities?
Yeah, it absolutely was. And I look back to the 2020 season being the COVID year, and us having to play so many games behind closed doors with no fans. And you're playing those games, and obviously you're fighting, you're working to win, but you look around and you're like, what is this really for, right? We do it because we we pride ourselves. We take our craft seriously. It's our career. We want to win games, but at the end of the day, we do it at one as a form of entertainment. That's what sport is. But we do it for the fans and the club and the pride that comes with winning for the people that support you. So that season was probably, showed me even more how important it is to take pride in that, and to, we invest so much on the field because so many people invest their time, their money. They're buying tickets, they're buying merchandise, they're buying these things. They invest their time and money into us. So, it's even more of a driving factor to want to, for 90 minutes on a Saturday, go out there and put everything on the line to give back to them. And it's funny, Greenville Tormenta is obviously a great example. I was probably went to battle with those guys 7, 8, 9 times over the course of 3 years, and so Pablo Jara, the goalkeeper, fantastic
Love
goalkeeper,
Pablo.
always
Well, one of
great.
our favorite guys to stare down. Love Pablo.
Right, you guys, any of the Reedy River Riot would give him absolute hell for, I would say, 90 minutes, more 45 minutes when he was down on that end, but he was that guy after the game who, it didn't matter if it was an away game, he'd stand in goal when little kids wanted to shoot. And he's a guy, I've never been a teammate with him, didn't know him outside of just the games we played against each other. Him and I would always share a moment after the game, whether it was a hug, great game, good work, that save was awesome, stuff like that. And when I retired a few months ago, a few of my family members graciously put together a pretty awesome video where I had some recordings from different people just wishing me well and congrats on a great career. And I'm watching it, and sure enough, who pops up on the screen? Pablo Jara, wishing me well in the retirement, and thanking me for all the great competition on the field and just being a great competitor. And that's stuff you don't see, you don't get. It's just part of it's something that's built into our sport that maybe it is part of other sports. I'm not entirely sure, but I know across the USL, guys play for different teams. You're teammates with a lot of guys over the course of a career. There's a guy I've never been a teammate with, never shared a beer with, never, would never consider us friends, quote unquote. But he's a guy I absolutely consider a friend, a guy I want to have a beer with just from playing 90 minutes against him multiple times over the course of a year. I have a massive amount of respect for him. And that's just one of the cool nuances to our sport that you just, you don't really see.
We got Dallas Jaye joining us here on the Rob Brown Show podcast edition. All right, let's switch gears for just a minute because we've got obviously the World Cup taking place. I'm looking, we both got it on the TV at the same time here. You spent some time representing Guam at the international level. So let me start with the easy question, which is kind of walk me through the road that brought you to representing Guam as an international player. And once you got the opportunity to do that, man, regardless of what team, what nation, what colors, I've got to imagine there is some level of pride to pull on a kit that's got the crest that represents some part of your heritage, your background, etc. So how did you end up representing Guam as an international? And when you did get to put on the bright colored GK sheet that had the crest on it, kind of what was that emotion like for you, regardless of whether it was an international friendly, an exhibition, some sort of cup competition? Like, what was that? What was the life of an international player like for you?
Yeah, it was. So I'll start from the beginning. The reason, the way I was able to compete for the Guam national team is my whole mom's side of the family's from there. My grandmother, who just turned 96 yesterday, kind of the matriarch of our family, was born and raised on the island. So with that, FIFA wise, you have to have lineage up through your grandparent to qualify for any nation that you weren't, like myself, born in the United States, U.S. citizen. So you need to have lineage through a grandparent to play anywhere else. So that was kind of something we figured out somehow. My dad did a lot of deep diving on the internet back in the day, and I was 16 years old. We're at San Diego Surf Cup, which is a big tournament here in California, youth tournament, and Guam had sent a team over to play. And when we saw them on the schedule, my mom got all excited, wanted to go over and see that a team from Guam was here playing, and connected with a few folks on the sideline while the game was going on. And they told us how they have a national program and all this stuff. So stayed in touch with them, and a bit after that got invited to play with their under 19 national team. So that was my first experience. I was 16 years old, got invited to play with the U national team. Didn't really know a whole lot about it. Had never been to Guam, so had flown out there. Got to play in a East Asian tournament with them. Really awesome experience. That was in 2009, and then everything kind of just fizzled out from there. It was a cool experience, and I kind of just moved on. And then in 2012, they really invested and ramped up the national team program. So brought in a new coach, really reputable guy, Gary White, who's now coaching in the Chinese First Division, actually. So he came and just completely renovated, reworked, reinvented the national team program. So that was in 2012. So I got called in. My first international call up for the full team was in 2012, and got my first cap when I was 18 years old. And from there, for the next 9-10 years, was part of the pool of players that would get called in when we had international tournaments, World Cup qualifying, all those things. And I think I wrapped things up with 22, 23 caps. Got to play in a number of World Cup qualifiers. We actually played in World Cup qualifying for this World Cup that's going on now. Clearly, we didn't do enough to make it there, but the most recent ones were some of the Greenville Triumph fans may remember. But in 2021, when I had left, I'd missed maybe 1 or 2 Greenville Triumph games, but I was away with Guam playing World Cup qualifying. Got to play against China in China in front of like 30,000 fans. So just incredible experiences across the board.
You at one point, you quite literally flew around the globe in order to make it back for a Greenville game, if I recall correctly.
I did. I started. I don't know my East and West. I should know better. Flew from South Carolina to China, played a game there. Then the teams went to Dubai to play another couple matches of World Cup qualifying there, and then I went the other way over Europe, back to not back to South Carolina, to Texas, to join up the team to play North Texas. So I think I ended up playing 4 games in 2 weeks over the course of like 17 time zones or something ridiculous. And those experiences were always crazy, but I enjoyed every minute of it because I was like, this is unreal. This is stuff that players, don't typically get to do. You have to be the top of the top in your country or who you qualify or to even get this opportunity to do. So never took it for granted. It was always pretty incredible. So it's fun getting to watch the World Cup and see, Iran. We played against Iran in World Cup qualifying for the last World Cup, the 2018 Russia World Cup, and Guam is U.S. territory. Everyone there is U.S. citizens. We played against Iran in Iran, which is obviously there's some geopolitical undertones there. It's a bunch of Americans traveling into the country of Iran, and so experiences like that you never get, without the ability to get to play for a national team. So some of the best parts of my career, some of the best memories of my career will always be from getting to do that. And they're when I retired, they reached out and said, you're retiring from club or you're retiring from international? And I'm like, I'm done, but you never know. You never know. If a call comes in and I'm still feeling fit enough, you never know.
Plus, on top of, what better gig than call me Tuesday, I'll play Thursday, and then I'm just back retired on Wednesday. Just got to feel
right.
nice.
Right. Exactly. So we'll see. I don't know what the next opportunities are coming up for them. Obviously, this World Cup, a lot of national team stuff shuts down for a lot of FIFA nations. So we'll see what's next. But no, for the time being, it's been fun getting to watch teams like Iran, who we played against several of those players. Getting to see a team like I take to a lot of the Asian teams because that was the part of the world we competed in. So just getting to see Saudi Arabia today beat an Argentina team that I actually have in a pool with some buddies that was my team to win. So a little disappointed about that because it's going to get a little harder for them. But that's the magic of the World Cup. Upsets, wild things. We had a couple of them when we were playing with Guam. We upset India. We upset Turkmenistan, countries that were far higher than us in the FIFA rankings. So stuff like that is just it's just so cool, and it only happens when these underdogs, these Saudi Arabias, get to play against the heavyweights, the Goliaths, like in Argentina. So to have some of those memories myself is pretty incredible.
Have you hit the point in retirement yet? And I know it's still very fresh, but are you watching the World Cup? Did you watch some of the friendlies leading up? Are there the points where you sit back on the couch and go, damn, man, maybe one more, maybe one more?
It's funny. I wrapped up in July. I played my last game July 23rd. I'm going to add this tidbit in because I always thought it was funny, but So my professional debut came as a substitute, which obviously is a goalkeeper, not a common thing, but a substitute against New York Red Bull 2. Our keeper had gotten a red card. I had to come into the game and play the rest of the game. I retired on July 23rd as a 90th minute substitute against New York Red Bull 2. So pretty full circle kind of career thing. But reason I bring that up, so that was late July. I was in preseason with St. Mary's August 1. So there was really no transition time from playing into coaching. I jumped straight into the deep end of coaching literally 2 days after my last match with Monterey. So I was in the thick of it through the college season. It's really busy, really congested, and I was wondering when the college season ended if it's all going to kind of hit me now, right? I've been just going since I retired. Haven't had a second to kind of sit back and really let it all digest, but I honestly haven't missed playing. So I know that it was the right time for me to step into something new. I will say this morning when I was watching the games, I made my girlfriend watch some of the highlights of me playing against China. There's like a little highlight tape. So there are those moments where I'll pull up the highlights and relive the glory days a little bit. But no, it's the timing for me was right, and it's fun to now help a next generation of players, being youth kids, being college kids, pursue the opportunities and try to play for the youth kids in college, for the college kids in the pro game. So now I'm feel like a just old man who can help the next guys come along.
Love it. Dallas Jaye, former goalkeeper for the Greenville Triumph, now a coach at St. Mary's, joining us here on the Rob Brown Show podcast edition. Let's talk World Cup for just a minute. Let's talk a little bit about this team, and who better to start with for Dallas Jaye than Matt Turner in the goal. Zach Steffen gets left off, which I think, there were probably 2 or 3 surprises for Greg Berhalter's roster selection here, and Steffen not being on that list was a bit of a shock. But I like Matt Turner. I like what he's been doing. His time at Arsenal has been relatively successful. And yesterday, I thought there were really 2 big moments that he got called upon. One where he got full glove to turn away their first scoring opportunity. And I actually thought he did everything right in that PK effort against Bale. It's just that Gareth Bale's one of the best penalty spot takers in the world right now. What was your impression early of both Matt Turner being called in as GK1 and his performance in the opener against Wales?
I think it's well deserved. I think he's he's earned that right with his performances. One at New England and getting to make the move he made to Arsenal, and 2 with his performances with the national team. He's never wavered in. Here's a guy who was in USL 3-4 years ago, played at a smaller college. His story is incredible. It's awesome. It's everything. It's everything that is what is going on with U.S. soccer. He is like that story of playing college, build yourself up through the divisions, and to go from Richmond Kickers to Arsenal over the course of 3-4 years is about as good as it gets. But no, I thought he played well. I thought he looked strong yesterday. A little bit shaky with some of the aerial stuff, but you're playing in that second half in front of the entire Wales contingent of fans. And those international games, and you see it's different than the club level. The games are hectic. Their players aren't as familiar playing with each other because they really only get so much time to train with one another leading up to these games. So overall, I thought he had a strong enough performance. I think at the end of the day, I think it ended up being a fair result. US had the better of the first half. Wales had the better of the second half. The penalty, not many guys are getting to that. He did everything right. And maybe if he was 6'5" and a little bit more reach, he gets there. But a great pen at the end of the day, and he's been a joy to watch. And I'm looking forward to what he can do the rest of the tournament. Because he really, I think the guys take to him. And I think that's a big thing for for Greg Berhalter, and why he selected him as number 1 is, and this may sound cheesy, but the movie Miracle, right? You don't need the best players, you need the right ones. And I think he has commanded that group and earned a lot of respect to those guys where they're the one they want to look back and see standing in goal.
Talk to me a little bit, because you hit on something that's really interesting, and I think it probably impacts the keeper more than anybody else. The guys in the front, they've got their communication, but it's a lot of nonverbal, and it's a lot of I trust you to be where you're supposed to be, etc. And we talked about this at length when you were here in Greenville, the ability that, especially standing in Section 110, I mean, we are hearing barking orders, do this, do that, move up, move back, left, right, shift around. A guy like Turner has very limited time to really get on the same page, especially with the back line. And at the World Cup level, that's most interesting because especially when you're playing somebody like Gareth Bale out of Wales, some of the best players in the world are the first ones that are coming at your back line. And as a goalkeeper, kind of the quarterback on that back end, you're keeping that all together. How much goes into making sure that your keeper is the quarterback there is able to keep those constant line of communications open? And how much more difficult does it make it when you have limited prep time to do that, and then knowing that in every game in a World Cup, the world's best strikers are going to be lined up ahead of you every single time you step foot in the box?
Yeah, yeah, and if I cut out audio wise, my headphones are getting a little janky right now. So just let me know, and I'll flip over. But no, it's just trust. Like those guys have to trust each other, and it's interesting, right? They brought in a Tim Ream pretty late in the process. He wasn't in a lot of the World Cup qualifying call ups. He hasn't been with the team a whole lot, and here he is anchoring the back line with Walker Zimmerman, who's been in the fold the whole time. But Tim Ream's had an incredible Premier League season. That's why he deserves to be there. And I absolutely agree with the decision for him to be out on the field. But for keepers, and especially in a game like that, communication almost goes out the door because you really can't hear anything out there. You have to pick and choose your moments, whether it's like, ball goes out and it's a goal kick to try to pull a guy or two over just to get some information to him that you can't necessarily say in the run of play because the stadium is so loud, especially in that second half for the U.S. They have all the Wales fans behind them. You can yell as much as you want. They're probably not going to hear you. That's when the nonverbals come into play, just the bits of eye contact, pointing stuff out. You try to get as much information to them as you can. You pick and choose the moments where the ball's out of play, where you can get some of the most valuable information you need to get to them in those times. But those guys have to trust each other. They have to be on the same page, which a difficult task when you've only trained together for 8-9 days leading up to it, and every couple months over the last couple of years. So at the end of the day, those guys got to rely on their talent, their ability, and whatever trust they have been able to build up to this point. But you see it, and I think people who watch a lot of club soccer and are now watching the World Cup see it. The games are a little bit uglier, a little bit more frantic, a little bit more chaotic. But you have some of the most talented players in the world playing, so they make it look easy. But I always personally saw a difference playing with my club team and then going to play with Guam. It's a much harder task. You got to find organization, and you got to find style of play in much shorter amounts of time. And that's why set pieces become such a big thing in these international tournaments. That's why you see probably a lot more fouls. You see a lot more. I mean, the stoppage time in every half of all these games has been like 7, 8, 9 minutes plus, which you never really see. But these games are a lot more choppy, a lot more broken up. But then again, we still haven't seen the Frances. That we'll see him here soon. The Brazils, the teams that can make it look easy. So it's going to be interesting for the U.S. to see how they handle the next game with England, because you talk about, as you said, playing against one of the best strikers in the world. With England, you're going against some of the top talent across the board in the world. So curious to see how they deal with them. But from a keeper's perspective, you do what you can organization wise, but you just got to be ready for when everything breaks down and you're called upon.
Give me a 60-second goalkeeper education for those who, I think the folks who really truly understand what's happening on a soccer pitch are very familiar, but maybe not as much with goalkeepers. The majority of us who did not play that position. 60-second lesson. You're standing in the goal at an international level, and we hear the chirps, we hear the yells. What are you shouting? Like, what are the things you're saying to the back line? Is it all organizational? Is it keep this man marked? Is it like, what are you saying in a routine run of play to the guys across the back?
More often than not, it's organizational, and it's always like, for me, I would always start with their name, and then whatever information, as concisely as I can say it, I needed to get to them. So, Rob slide right, or Rob pick up 10, pick up 12, just whatever, just because you say their name, it gets their attention, hopefully. And then the bit of information you need to get to them. And then for goalkeepers, it's always important the tone of what you're delivering, right? So as the play is getting closer to goal, as the moment becomes a little bit more threatening, your urgency has to go up with your communication. The ball's down the field, it can be more conversational, just get the information to him. As things build closer and closer and closer, that's when you hear the urgency of the tone and the inflection in your voice have to go up, because those are the all hands on deck type moments where, a split second of communication to pick this guy up can be the difference between a goal and someone blocking a shot or something like that. So with the communication piece, it's always organizational. And at times, sometimes it's just the rah encouragement. Someone makes a big tackle, makes a big play. You want to let them know. You always want to let them know when they do something right. When they do something wrong, I mean, like you said, Section 110, you guys would hear me yelling at guys. You were kind of giving your interpretation of it. There's probably a lot more profanity than the version you did, but it's a necessary part of the game. It's a fun part, and I always walked out of those games. Usually, my voice would be lost for like a day or two, and if it was, that means I probably was communicating pretty well.
Dallas Jaye joining us here on the Rob Brown Show podcast. Got a couple more minutes before we got to turn them loose and get set for France, Australia here. Yesterday we saw, at least in my opinion, my analysis, Dallas, kind of a big shift in American mentality. I felt 72 minutes of the game, we were playing on the front foot, pushing forward. I thought we were trusting Matt Turner to be good in goal in order to pull that off. And then in the 73rd minute, for some reason, we just kind of shifted and decided to back everybody out, play back on the back foot, and let the game come to us. What was your interpretation of what that U.S. game looked like yesterday, especially as we got later into it?
Yeah, it's tough. You always want to be the aggressor. You want to be you want to take the game to them, which they did an awesome job doing the first 45 minutes. I think some unfortunate yellow cards kept a few guys from being able to do that more. Weston McKennie being like a pit bull in the midfield. Early yellow card for him. He has to, be a little bit more well behaved and calculated with the way he approaches the game. Sergio Dest, the same thing. Like he was getting up and down. He was being very aggressive. But when you get that yellow card, you have to be a little bit smarter. Didn't agree with all the yellow cards, but so those early ones I think kind of hurt him a little bit. But still on the front foot, kind of tilted the field downhill, if you will, of just being in Wales's end and keeping possession. Second half, you saw that shift, but that's what a goal can do sometimes. You as you get into the later stages of the game, it becomes game management. It becomes gamemanship. 70 seconds, you talk about some of the timestamps there, and it's like, okay, can we bend but not break for the last 15, 20 minutes of the game and just get out of here with a 1-0 result? So I don't necessarily disagree with that approach to it, but it's risk and reward. If you're going to sit back, you're going to allow them to have more possession, more opportunity, and you got to be very strong defensively, which the U.S. has the type of guys who can do that. But at the end of the day, you're going against talented players who can create things out of nothing, which for Wales, it was a quick throw in that, leads to, kind of a clumsy challenge from Walker Zimmerman, and sure enough, a penalty. But overall, I think they have a lot to build on. And seeing the way they started that match was really encouraging. It'll be interesting against England, a more superior opponent than Wales. And I'm curious to see how they approach it. Maybe they let England have the better of it to start, feel the game out for the first 15, 20 minutes, and then make an adjustment. Maybe they're high pressing right from the start. I really don't know, and I'm excited to see what they end up doing with that.
Dallas Jaye here on the Rob Brown Show podcast. Dallas, I know you got to get out of here before we let you go. Anything you want to say? I know this is going to be passed around the folks here in Greenville, South Carolina, a place you called home and a place that very much loved you during your playing time here with the Triumph. Any message you want to send to the folks of the upstate?
Love everyone, miss everyone, and I will be back in town. I'll give you my dates. I'll be there December 13th to 18th. I made a point to book my return flight after the World Cup final, so I'll be in Greenville for the World Cup final. So I'll be in town. I'm looking forward to seeing as many people as I can, whether it's in the team store, at have plans to go to Society or Bridge City, the coffee shop I always used to. I'll be around town. I'll make sure that I maybe find a time to, whether it's at one of the bars or something, to connect with people, or maybe for a game. There'll be games going on, so maybe it's a yeehaw for a game or something like that. I'm looking forward to seeing everyone again. It's been awesome to connect with you again today, Rob, and hopefully the U.S. is still playing by the time I get to Greenville.
I'm not saying there's going to be an unofficial, official Dallas Jaye World Cup final watch party, but I'm not saying that there's going to be one. We'll find out. Dal Jaye, man, it has been awesome to catch up with you. We appreciate it, buddy. We'll have to do it again real soon, partner.
Appreciate you, Rob. Thanks for the
Love
time.
it. That is Dallas Jaye, former Greenville Triumph goalkeeper, played for the Guam international side as well, joining us here on the Rob Brown Show podcast. By the way, social media handle, hit them with them real quick, Dallas.
Whew. I should know these. After retirement, I think I forgot.
Branding,
I think
everything
is Dal Jaye, DALJAYE on Instagram, Twitter. Don't have TikTok. I don't got time for that. I think that's all I'm on. But yeah, those are them. Come check me out. There's far less soccer content now and more just my life.
I love it. I love it. Dallas Jaye here on the Rob Brown Show podcast, and we will be back with our next episode sooner rather than later. Thanks to Dallas Jaye. Thanks to Doug and Joe and Chris and everybody for setting this up. The Triumph are fantastic, and we appreciate them, and we will roll another episode at you soon. Have a great day. See you then, guys.